I don't know about you, but I've been waiting for some news about Batman. We just do not get enough Batman comic books these days. We certainly don't get enough Tom King. So some Tom King Batman news seems very exciting. Apparently, DC Comics are calling your bluff. They're saying, you think you don't want more Tom King Batman? We're giving you more Tom King Batman. And this time, it's not going to be a series. It sounds like it's actually going to be like a graphic novel, kind of in the vein of Killing Joke, obviously, that came out originally as like a 64-page, kind of giant-sized issue from Alan Moore. We do know that Tom King fancies himself as the modern-day Alan Moore. Let's get to the details of this. We know who the artist is, we know who the writer is, and we sort of know what the book's going to be about. Batman will take on the Riddler, who has begun killing people at random on the streets of Gotham in a new one-shot from Tom King and Mitch Gerads. DC announced Batman One Bad Day, the Riddler, on their Twitter account, a new one-shot from King and Gerads launching this August. Edward Nygma is meticulous until one day he suddenly starts killing at random. The post reads, Batman must race to figure out the motivation behind the Riddler's spree. Gerads also posted an announcement on his Twitter account. The graphic novel is my genuine long-time dream book, and King delivered the absolute perfect script for it. I've never been this excited to get a book into your midst. I've been putting everything I have into every page. I will give Tom King this. He certainly has a very unique take on the Riddler. Me personally, I'm not a fan. He's always got like that weird, I don't know, he's always like showing his chest off and stuff. It doesn't feel a whole lot like Riddler. He's got a stupid haircut. He does still have the hat, and he certainly likes to color green, but he doesn't do a whole lot of Riddling. Let's just put it that way, which seems to be a calling card of the Riddler. Hell, even in the movie The Batman, which doesn't feel like a real interpretation of Riddler, he had some riddles in there, but you don't typically see that in a Tom King comic book. Doesn't sound like we're going to get it here. He's just some type of serial killer. He's meticulous until one day he's not. If you like Tom King's take on Batman and the Riddler, you'll probably like it. I imagine this will be told in kind of the current stuff that Tom King does, where everything has to be out of order, and we're jumping back in time 6 minutes, and then 6 hours, and then 6,000 years, and then we're at the current time. I find it all a bit tiresome. And you won't find a better example than that than Batman Catwoman, which is pretty much unreadable, despite having phenomenal art from Clayman. And that's the one thing you can always count on from Tom King. He's going to get paired up with a fantastic artist. Mitch Gerads certainly has a unique style to him, but I still think he's a really good comic book artist, and he certainly seems to have an affinity for working for Tom King. Gerads and King worked together on Batman before, as they collaborated on a number of past Batman issues for DC. The two also teamed up for Vertigo Comics' The Sheriff of Babylon and DC's Mr. Miracle. DC is currently releasing Batman Killing Time, which is written by King with art from David Marquez. The 6-issue series features Riddler as one of the main antagonists going up against the Dark Knight, along with Catwoman, the Penguin, and others. Batman Killing Time is probably the best work Tom King has done at DC in like 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. So that one's definitely worth a shot if you want to check it out. And if you trust halfway through Killing Time that Tom King isn't going to Tom King the story and do a big, character assassination moment, he's certainly getting the job done in The Human Target. I mean, look no further than what he's done to Guy Gardner, but character assassination pretty much is Tom King at DC these days. You see what he did to Mr. Terrific, what he's done to Batman in the past, what he's doing right now to Selena Kyle. I don't even want to think about what he did to poor Wally West in Heroes in Crisis. It might go down as the worst DC comic story of all time. You know what I mean? I don't know why they're pressing their luck and giving him another Batman book. I mean, he literally tanked the sales on Batman to such a level that they had to remove him from the book early. He doesn't have a feel for Batman. He's not a good Batman writer. Feels like he's redeeming himself to a degree with Killing Time, but I don't know, after the wedding and the nightmare issues and the ending with City of Bane, there's no redemption in Batman for Tom King. There's only bad memories and disappointment among the people that actually read those stories for the most part. I honestly think that if Tom King devoted less time trying to prove that he's the second coming of Alan Moore and more time dedicated to, I don't know, writing good comic book stories, he'd be in a lot better shape as far as the fandom goes, probably be a lot more popular. And his sales, which are better than a lot of people, would be even better because he actually is a talented comic book writer. My one big question for DC Comics is, when you had all these writers, and they were pretty acclaimed, you had your Scott Snyder, your Peter J. Tabasis, you had your Tom King, Grant Morrison, like they decided to get rid of all of them including it feels like Brian Michael Bendis, but they kept Tom King. Like, why was he the chosen when it could the fans have a say in it? I mean, they ran away from Batman, the most important comic book in all the industry, yet this guy apparently has a lifetime gig at DC Comics. Tom King does think he's the modern day Alan Moore, and I think he would like to prove it. I have a feeling that this will be like a lot of other things that Tom King has done, where he proves the exact opposite. The one saving grace about this comic book is the shorter the story, the shorter the amount of real estate Tom King has to tell his story, the better. If you give him 10 issues, you're playing with fire. If you give him 12 issues, you just signed up for a disaster as far as the comic book story. Maybe if you give him 6 issues or less, you might get some gold in there. And hell, if you give him 64 pages, that's only like 3 issues. Perhaps you get a really good story. I'm counting on that not happening, but it could happen, and killing time ain't so bad. So perhaps we are entering a new dawn, a new era for Tom King's writing career where he doesn't suck ass and just destroy characters left and right.
I'm a little bit depressed. I feel like Tom King is the boogeyman that eventually comes for all DC characters.
He's done a little bit of character assassination along the ways. Obviously, we got Guy Gardner going on right now, Selena Kyle going on right now. Before that, we would have had Wally West, Mr. Terrific, certainly Batman himself. So, yes, he's, I don't know. If you like a character, it's never a good sign if Tom King ends up writing that character.
You know what is a good sign, though? How his work keeps shrinking. 12-issue maxi series, 6-issue series, one shot. I think we're very close to just finally not having any Tom King at all, and really? These characters being a little bit safer. No, I'm sure they're going to continue to give him work, at least until David Zaslav looks at DC's numbers and makes some determinations about what's going to happen there. But until then, I think we're stuck with him because obviously, we thought we were going to get rid of him to Hollywood. He was attached to Ava DuVernay and New Gods, and that got axed. And now her show Naomi got axed. So, that relationship, I don't know if they're going to be working together. So we may be stuck with him. But
he is working with Mitch Gerads. They've worked together a lot. They did Sheriff of Babylon. They did Mr. Miracle. Did a few issues of Batman together. Tom King and Mitch Gerads. Mitch Gerads really likes Tom King. I don't know where Tom King ends and Mitch Gerads begins anymore because his head's so far up Tom King's ass. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a comics human centipede is what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, what's interesting to me is that in the press release for this, and for those of you who are going, what the hell are they talking about? It's this Riddler one shot that they're doing, and the way that they're marketing it is that they're saying it's the killing joke for the Riddler. So first of all, never market something by saying like it's in the vein of something else. I remember when I was at Boom, we used to do that. We had this excellent series called The Anchor, and I remember the best that the marketing could come up with was it's in the vein of Goon and Hellboy. That was the tagline for it. And so it was like, well, why wouldn't I just read Goon or Hellboy? You're telling me this book is derivative. That's what that marketing is telling me. So that's what this is telling me, is it's telling me it's derivative of the Killing Joke. Tom King wants to be Alan Moore so bad.
It's true.
And it's like, you're not Alan Moore. You can never be Alan Moore. You're a fool to try. And anyone who's telling you that you can is a fool as well. I
feel bad for Mitch Gerads because every time he does one of these homages, these homages to Alan Moore, we get the 9-panel grids and all that stuff. Mitch Gerads can do a lot of things. He can, he can trace really well. He can throw some filters over some pictures really well and say it's comic book art. But I don't see him freehanding 9-panel grids and throwing Batman and Riddler in there and making it look good. When we just had Jason Fabok do the same thing in Batman 3 Jokers, another homage to the Killing Joke that was actually pretty darn good.
Well, because Jeff Johns gets it. He reads these stories and he understands them. And Tom King is, he's got one go-to. He's the House of Idea. He's, the character's going to be depressed and they're going to be totally dependent upon their wife or girlfriend. It's such a cliche at this point. And so we're going to get a sad sack, miserable Riddler. And the story is going to be depressing and it's going to, ultimately damage that character in the eyes of people who love him. Do you know why the Riddler is so hard to write, Wes? Do you know why we don't have any really classic Riddler stories? Because you have to be smarter than the Riddler to write the Riddler. And do you think Tom King is smarter than the Riddler?
Nah, I think he thinks he's smarter than the Riddler, but nah,
not
really.
But it's gonna be more of the same. And I for one don't want to see it. And Mitch Gerads is promoting it as he should. It's nice to see a comic book. Someone in the comic book industry actually promoting their work and being excited about it. He's saying that he's turning in the best work of his career. So yeah, he's gonna trace harder than he's ever traced before, man. It's gonna be unbelievable.
Tracing's hard work. So what we have noticed is the shorter the story, the better likelihood that it will be good from Tom King. The last great thing he wrote at DC really was the Swamp Thing Winter Special. Obviously, that was like a one-shot. That was really, really good. We had his 85 issues of Batman. That wasn't so good. That thing fell off the tracks. We had 10 issues of, or was it 9 issues? It was 9 or 10 issues of Heroes in Crisis. That was awful. 12 issues of Strange Adventures. That was awful. But now we've got the 6 issues of Killing Time, which is pretty darn.
Oh, don't forget about how awful Mr. Miracle was. Don't forget that.
That was another 12 issues. Maybe it was 10. It was one or the other. But now we're getting a 64-page one-shot in the vein of The Killing Joke. There's a chance that he might not be able to screw everything up if he's only got 64 pages to do it.
There's a chance, hope springs eternal. He definitely is better when he is kept to a smaller page count and can't indulge his typical tropes. So, we probably won't have time for, his mommy wife to come and save him. Whoever.
There's going to be a female character that comes in and saves Batman. There's no doubt about it.
You're probably right.
Yeah. Although he's doing some major league character assassination on Selena Kyle of Batman Catwoman. You've been reading that one?
I couldn't. After his Batman run, and I read the first couple issues of it, and I just had to bow out.
There's a page in there, or there's a moment where Batman walks in on Selena after she's been around Joker, and Batman hints that he can smell that they just had sex. It was that was kind of strange.
so he's Wolverine now, or he's Daredevil? Selena Kyle. Wait, so Selena Kyle had sex with the Joker?
Yes, that's what it's.
I care about these characters too much to read Tom King's version of them. This is the problem with modern comics is I care about these characters. I care about their legacies. I care about the creators that put all this work into them and that gave me so much enjoyment over the years. And I just care about it far too much to read these terrible stories by these terrible writers that just completely destroy the fabric of the character. There is no way Selena Kyle, Catwoman, would ever have sex with the Joker. Go F yourself. I'm not reading this shit.
I'm with you, man. It makes no sense.
No,
not in line, especially the Joker that we have in comics today, where he is literally a serial killer. It's
disgusting. It's like in the Batman Killing Joke animated adaptation, where he has sex with Barbara Gordon on the rooftop. It's blatantly out of character, and it lowers everybody who's involved.
It sucks so much knowing that I'm just a fucking YouTuber in the Philippines. I talk about comic books every day. Obviously, it's important to me, but you would think the editors and writers and people in charge at DC would care about these characters as much or more than I do. And it's almost clear every single week or almost every day now that is not the case.
I think it's a generational thing. It's people who don't understand the nature of heroism. They've never sacrificed anything. It's like comics used to be written by guys who'd gone to war and women who had really worked their way up through the industry, like your Ann Nesentes and your Louise Simonsons, people who understood struggle and understood sacrifice. And we just used to have a better idea of the nature of heroism. And I don't think that these current writers have any interest or any knowledge of that. And so all these characters have to be torn down. They have to be made small and petty like us. They can't be aspirational. And I think that's probably the saddest thing, is that we're living in a time where people can't even fathom what it's like to have an aspirational character, or to write an aspirational character, or to get beyond the small everyday grievances that we have with each other. We should be aspiring to something better, not just wallowing in the mire and dragging all our icons down with it.
Yeah, it's a bad day when you can get more heroism in a Dogman story than you can in a fucking Superman comic book.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of where we are. So if you like Batman and you like Tom King, you're going to be really excited about this. We got Batman One Bad Day, the Riddler, in homage to Batman the Killing Joke. Only a couple years after, we got another one in Batman 3 Jokers. I imagine that one will have been done much better. Mitch Gerads once again partnered up with Tom King. I don't know. Why subject us to more Tom King? It feels like a punishment at this point.
It really does, and I feel well. At least here's the nice thing about Mitch Gerads being on the book is at least we're not wasting Clayman or Jason Fabok on it. Or Tom King seems to generally get this top tier comic book talent that his stories do not. They just don't deliver anything interesting for those artists to draw. So if you're gonna put him on a book with Mitch Gerads, that's great. You'll get some great traced photographs, and it'll look really nice. But at least you're not taking an artist that actually puts in all the work. You're not wasting him on a Tom King story.
Tom King's reputation has certainly taken a downward spiral in comic books. It all really started in his Batman run, specifically at number 50. But I think it started before that. I actually had a conversation, had a video talking about where it all went wrong for Tom King and his Batman run. Definitely check this out. We point out all the things that happened and where Tom King really screwed up his career and his reputation.